Have you ever felt like there's just no time to study a foreign language, even though you're really motivated?
Yeah, honestly, it feels like there's always something else to do. I have a job. I have a family to take care of. By the time I finally have time to myself, it's typically at the end of the day, and by then, I'm usually exhausted.
Well, today we've got a trick for you. We're talking about how to improve your English when you don't have any time. You could call it a lazy way, but it seems to work for many people.
I'm all ears.
Relax and learn simple English with Easygoing English Podcast.
I'm Claire.
I'm Josh.
Welcome to the first episode of Easygoing English Podcast.
We're super excited to be here with you today.
Before we jump in, don't forget to hit subscribe and tap the like button if you find this helpful. We'll be posting every week with practical and effective learning techniques, useful English phrases, grammar rules, and much more.
Yeah, if you want to make real progress in English, we've got your back.
So Josh, you're studying French, right? And I know you're really busy these days. How do you usually find time to study French with everything else going on?
I try to chat with my French friends when I can, but it's hard to make time for it, especially since we're always swamped with things to do.
I totally get that. When I was in college, I used to sit down and study Japanese for hours, but now life's a bit busier, so I don't always have time to do that.
So, if you don't have hours to study anymore, how do you keep improving?
That's when I discovered passive learning. It's all about getting exposure to the language without actively sitting down and studying. You just have the language you want to learn playing in the background, like a podcast, a radio show, or even a video while you're doing other things.
Wait, you just listen to stuff in your target language while you're doing other things? How does that actually work?
Exactly. You just absorb the language naturally while you're going about your day, whether that's doing chores, commuting, or even relaxing at home. You don't have to focus on it, but your brain is still hearing it and picking up new words and patterns.
That is totally doable. I mean, I could listen to a podcast in French while commuting, doing the dishes, and even when I'm trying to fall asleep. That sounds a lot easier than sitting down with a textbook. But is it really effective? I mean, I feel like I wouldn't remember anything if I wasn't really paying attention.
Glad you asked because I actually did some research on this topic. According to a 2022 study, English speakers who listened to Italian podcasts daily for 2 weeks showed a significant improvement in recognizing Italian words compared to those who listened to English podcasts. What's interesting is that they didn't receive any formal instruction during this time. They just listened while going about their day, and yet they became better at telling real Italian words apart from non-words. This suggests that even casual exposure to a language can help you pick up some of its patterns without much effort.
So, the participants listened to Italian podcasts daily for 2 weeks. No lessons, no practice. They got better at spotting real Italian words compared to people who listen to English podcasts, just from passive listening.
Exactly. Based on what I read, it didn't seem like they even understood what the words meant, but they still recognized them. This is also another interesting study that I found while exploring this topic that I think is worth sharing. A study that had native Spanish speakers practice telling apart sounds in the Basque language. The participants who only listened improved more than those who spoke the sounds out loud.
Interesting. So, the people who did nothing but listen were able to distinguish sounds in the Basque language better than the ones who actively practiced saying the sounds out. Do you think we should just listen and learn passively?
I wouldn't go that far. I think both active and passive learning are more effective when they're combined.
Great idea. But still, passive learning seems effective after all.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't actively study a language. You definitely need to practice it, but exposing yourself to the language will definitely help.
If you're too busy, you can just listen and make progress.
It's definitely effective. The key is repetition. Even if you're not actively studying, hearing the language over and over again helps you become familiar with words, phrases, and sentence structures. Over time, it starts to stick in your brain, even if you don't realize it.
So basically, if you want to improve your English, you can listen to English while you're doing other things like cleaning or cooking.
Yes, exactly. You can listen to podcasts, watch videos, or even listen to music. It's all about exposure. Your brain will start recognizing the language more, and soon you'll find that you understand more without even trying.
I'm really amazed. That sounds way easier than I thought. Do you know anyone who's become fluent in a foreign language through passive learning?
Oh yeah, I met this lady named Kumiko in Japan. She was pretty fluent in English. I asked her if she'd ever lived in an English-speaking country. Surprisingly, she'd never lived outside of Japan.
Do you have a friend who learned English without leaving Japan? How'd she do it?
I asked her how she managed to become so fluent. She just told me that she was always listening to English whenever she was doing something. This was before smartphones became popular, and she was always carrying an MD player and listening to pre-recorded English conversations through earphones. Of course, she must have actively studied English and learned the basics initially.
Wow, that's quite impressive. That reminds me of someone I knew. My French roommate in college had an almost impeccable American accent, even though he had just moved to the US as an adult and had spent his whole life in France. I always wondered how he managed to do it. One thing I remember is that he told me he had always listened to radio shows in English back in France.
I think one of the reasons why passive learning can be so effective for some people is that you will start picking up on the patterns of the language, the rhythm and intonation. English has its own unique rhythm. In fact, it's called a stress-timed language, meaning you stress certain words in a sentence while you reduce the others. Mastering that aspect of the language will definitely help you sound more like a native speaker like your French roommate did. And this is probably one of the many topics that we should cover in the future on this channel.
Definitely. Just listening to English while you're doing other things can help you get used to how the language sounds and pick up new words and expressions along the way.
Exactly. And that's why I decided to create this channel. So people who are busy and can't always sit down to study can still improve their English. Just play our videos in the background and let the English sink in. I wanted to provide an easygoing platform for busy English learners.
That sounds so much easier. I'm definitely going to tell my friends who are learning English about it.
And not only will you improve your listening skills, but you'll also get familiar with real-world English that you can actually use in everyday situations.
Okay, but what kind of real-world English are we talking about here? Like, what situations will our viewers be ready for after listening to all this content?
Great question. So, imagine you're traveling and you need to ask for directions, or maybe you're at a restaurant ordering food. With passive learning, you're getting exposed to the exact kind of phrases and expressions that people use in those situations, even though you're not actively studying them. It's kind of like learning by osmosis.
So it's like you're hearing things so much that when the situation comes up, you already know what to say, even if you haven't memorized the exact phrases.
Exactly. The more you listen to English in different contexts, the more natural it will sound when you come across similar situations in real life. You'll already be familiar with how people speak, the tone they use, and the words that are common in certain settings.
That sounds awesome. Honestly, I feel like passive learning would make it way less stressful.
That's the whole point. Because it's happening naturally in the background, it doesn't feel like a stressful study session. You're just casually absorbing it, which makes it way easier to remember. We're also going to talk about different ways to learn beyond just situational listening.
That's a good idea. I think a lot of English learners will benefit from knowing different study methods.
Right. And when it comes to learning, it really depends on the person what approach works best for them.
Do you know any good techniques for memorizing vocabulary?
I personally like spaced repetition. Instead of going over the same words every single day, I try to space them out, increasing the intervals over time.
So you memorize a set of words one day and go over them again 2 days later.
Yeah, and after the second time, I go over them again 3 days later.
Oh, I see. And after the third time, you give it 5 more days before you go over them again.
Yeah, you've got it. This method has worked for me. We're going to talk about memorization techniques in future episodes. How do you study?
I'm a visual learner, so I like using pictures. I try to use pictures when I memorize words.
Oh yeah, that must be effective. So, we're going to talk about various study methods in future episodes as well.
That's exciting.
And of course, we are going to study practical vocabulary, phrases, expressions, and interesting idioms.
So now I'm wondering, how can we actually fit this into our daily routine? I mean, I'm sure it's not like we have to just sit all day listening to our videos, right?
Well, no, not all day. But that's the beauty of passive learning. It fits into whatever we're doing. We can play our videos while we're commuting, doing chores, or even during our workout. For example, we can play our videos while we're cooking or cleaning, or even when we're out on a walk.
That's actually perfect. I'm always doing stuff like cleaning or running errands, and I don't want to waste time. I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching this now are busy like me.
Exactly. Those are perfect moments to work some English into your day without adding extra pressure. Even if it's just 15 to 30 minutes at a time, it really adds up over the course of a week.
And they don't have to set aside specific time to study, right? It just fits into whatever they're already doing.
Yep. It's all about making English a part of your life, instead of trying to force study sessions into your schedule. You don't need to sit at a desk for hours to make progress.
Okay, so I understand now. But do you have any tips for making passive learning even more effective for the people watching this video?
Great question. Here are a few tips. Start by listening to content that's just a bit above your current level. It should be challenging enough that you're hearing new words or phrases, but not so difficult that you get frustrated. Also, it's helpful to switch up the content you're listening to. Don't just listen to the same thing every day. That way, you're exposed to a wider range of vocabulary and speaking styles.
So mix it up and don't just listen to one episode over and over. That makes sense.
Exactly. And another tip is to try focusing on what you're hearing. You don't have to study, but try to pick out new words or phrases and pay attention to the tone or how things are said. It's like a mini study session while you're doing other things.
That sounds like a perfect way to improve without feeling overwhelmed.
That brings us to the end of this episode. We hope you enjoyed learning about passive learning. Tune in to our next episode, where we'll be talking about practical English phrases. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified when it's uploaded.